So again, we started with this do now question today, asking about what tetrodotoxin does to the nerve cells. We're actually going to answer that in the Kahoot we're going to play to kind of go over what your homework was in the last class period. So, on whatever device you choose, if you could join our Kahoot. And we are going to review neurons, nerve impulses, and tetrodotoxin.
Hold on one quick moment.
All right, anyone else that we are waiting on? Ooh, okay. Anyone else? Okay, anyone else? And we are going to start. All right, what is a neuron? or doodles. What is the function of a dendrite? Okay, good. So dendrites receive incoming messages. Ooh, coffee addict. Sounds like you need more coffee. What is the function of a cell body? Oh, Stanley. Good. It integrates and processes incoming messages. Hey, Adriana. All right, what's the function of an axon? Good, it sends outgoing messages. The irony that our two failures are at the top of the scoreboard. What is the function of an axon terminal? Good, it releases neurotransmitters. The myelin sheath. Which of these is correct about the myelin sheath? Good. It increases the rate of a nerve impulse, and it doesn't wrap around the axon terminals, it wraps around the axon. Ladoodle's taking the lead. What is the function of a unipolar neuron? Good. Send messages to the brain. So remember, unipolar neurons are going to pick up on stimuli, which is just a fancy science way of saying any type of changes or things that happen around nerve cells. And it picks up on that change and it sends that change or message to the brain or central nervous system as fast as possible. Which of the following is true about the structure of a unipolar neuron? All right, good. The cell body is not connected to the dendrites. Remember, that's because we don't need the cell body to process or integrate anything here. The job is just to get the message to the brain as fast as possible. Mac Jan on the uprising. What's the function of a multipolar neuron? Send messages from the brain to an organ. So once the brain has made a decision of what needs to happen in response to the stimuli, it sends messages out multipolar neurons to eventually make organs do something. Which of the following is true about the structure of a multipolar neuron? Good, the cell body is connected to the dendrites. Remember, that's because in this case, we do have to prioritize directions coming from the brain. Anything that's a reflex will go out first, and then after that, it's based on memory. Okay, Kevin. What is a junction? Good, so it could be the meeting of a neuron and a neuron, or a neuron and an organ. What needs to happen first in a nerve impulse? Good. A neurotransmitter binds to a dendrite. That has to happen first to initiate anything else. Woo. What happens after the neurotransmitter binds to the dendrite? Good. Depolarization happens first. And then what happens after depolarization? Repolarization. Good. And what happens after repolarization? Good. A neurotransmitter is released from the axon terminals. And after the neurotransmitter is released, what happens next? Okay, good. The neuron has to regain resting potential. So, who could describe a neuron's resting potential? All right, good. So remember, when a neuron is resting or not doing anything, it has sodium ions on the outside, potassium on the inside, and it's more positively charged on the outside overall than the inside. So Then what happens during depolarization? Good. Sodium ions move into the axon. What happens during repolarization? Good. Potassium ions move out of the axon. So what has to happen when a neuron regains resting potential? Good. It requires the use of energy or ATP. And remember, that's because we have to force or shove the sodium ions back outside and force the potassium ions back inside. And so whenever we force something to go against a natural movement, it requires some energy. What does the myelin sheath do? Good. So it blocks some of the sodium and potassium channels so that they don't have to go in and out down the whole length of the axon. They can kind of just fly in and fly out of it, kind of like we would on the highway. And so lastly, what does tetrodotoxin do to neurons? Good. It blocks all of the sodium ion channels. So it means nothing could move in and out of any of the sodium ion channels. And first place goes to with Kevin in the first failure as runners up. I can't stand you guys. You are not failures. All right. So again, in your last class, you did the 1.10 practice as your homework. So that served as our review or going over it. We are now going to look at your next assignment. So if you could go into Canvas and you want to be in modules and go into the 1.13 model, neurons and nerve impulses. So first, this assignment is going to be due this Sunday night. Okay, if you are someone who is prone to forgetting to complete assignments or when they are due, then I would recommend either getting and using a planner or putting it as an alarm or reminder in your phone. Okay. Now, most of you have taken regular bio or chemistry, so you have had at some point experience making models. but just to make sure we're all having the same equal chance here. I'm going to start by kind of reviewing what a model is. We're going to look at some examples, and then we're going to specifically talk about what this model has to show. So a model in biology or life science-based classes is normally a drawing, because a model could be something that we physically built. So if you've ever taken physics or engineering or computer science, when you actually construct or code something to represent what the results might be or to make predictions of something, that is a physical model. But for most life science purposes, it's difficult for us to make physical models that actually show mechanisms on an atomic and cellular level. So it's easier for us to either digitally create a model or make a visual model like a drawing. So a model here for us should be mostly visual. It shows why something happens the way it does. It shows how something happens the way it does. We use labels and small captions to help everyone accurately interpret it. You can use an idea of like zooming into a picture or zooming out to look at a smaller, more microscopic inside image of what's happening, or a bigger picture. You can use different colors and shapes for different structures, molecules, or substances, and use arrows and numbers to show movement, sequence, or directionality. I want to stress, a model is not paragraphs of explanation with the world's smallest, most general picture drawn above it, or a diagram copied and pasted from Google. Okay. If I zoom in a little bit here for you, here are some examples of models that I have drawn over the course of this school year. And again, these aren't on the same topic, but I'm providing them so that you have a visual of what is expected in the model. So when I look at these models here, again, notice there's still some writing, right? I have to label everything so that anyone that's looking at it knows what they're looking at. That way, even if I personally think I'm the worst drawer ever, if it's labeled, I'm good, okay? You're not being graded on how good of a drawer or artist you are. Though I will say, I feel like this cow here is pretty phenomenal. You can see the rest of my drawings are a bunch of shapes and squiggly lines and arrows, okay? Here I have a little bit longer captions to maybe kind of briefly describe something that's being shown. And you can see in both of these, right, I have like a zoom in or out feature because I want to look more inside at a detailed level. A different model here, protein synthesis. Again, everything is very clearly labeled. I chose to use different colors to make certain labels or structures stand out. I use arrows to show where something is going from one thing to another. So movement. I can also use numbers to show like a sequence of steps that happen. And so what do we have to do in this model here for this class? So it says you have to create a model showing a nerve impulse being sent through a unipolar neuron. It should show and explain all the mechanisms of a sensory nerve impulse. You have to create a model that shows a nerve impulse being sent through a multipolar neuron. And it should show and explain all the mechanisms of a motor nerve impulse. Should show all structural components of a neuron with identification of the functions. Should show how tetrodotoxin from pufferfish will impact the neurons and nerve impulses. And then knowing that the nervous system controls all other organ systems, show how tetrodotoxin could cause bradycardia, which we know is a slowed heart rate, hypoventilating, which we know means a slower breathing rate, paresthesia, which is like a tingling feeling that you get, and paralysis and motor dysfunction when you're unable to move body parts. Okay. So I would look at that list kind of like a checklist you could go through of what has to be shown and explained in your model. So how will you submit this? Well, there's a variety of options you can do. First, if you are more comfortable hand drawing, labeling, and working on this, by all means, you're welcome to. If you choose to hand draw your model, I would just ask that you don't do it in pencil, colored pencil, or crayon unless you press really hard. That's because sometimes when we do it in pencil and we take pictures of it, there's a reflection or the writing is really light. And if I can't read and see stuff, then I can't give you a grade for it. Digitally, you can also make it, and I'll talk about a couple of very simple free sites you can go to make it digitally. If you choose to hand draw your model, option one is to just take a picture of your model and directly upload pictures to this assignment page. So there should be a button that says something along the lines of file upload, upload file, submit, something like that. You're going to click on that and you would just directly select from whatever device you're on the pictures of your model. Okay. Option two is that you hand draw your model, take pictures of it, upload it to Google Drive, and then when you come to upload it here from this assignment, you're going to click on the file upload, go into Google Drive, and search and find for your pictures. Option three, again, hand draw your model, take pictures, and you can insert those pictures into one Google Doc or presentation, and then just upload and submit that one doc or presentation. Now, if you want to make a digital one, totally fine and cool with me. I genuinely don't care, okay? There are two sort of functions, and they're actually very similar, Google Jamboard and Google Draw, that you can use to create it, and they're just Google apps. So I could just go to Google and type in Google Jamboard, and it shows up. Now, it's going to open up for you in your South Redford account. And just like everything else in a Google app, there is going to be a place on the page that has this little plus sign where you can create a new one. And then you can see here on the left-hand side, I have all these different functions that I can use. So I know for some of you, one, if you have a tablet, this might be an easier way for you to do it. You might feel like you can make a neater model. Okay, if you have a tablet, you can use a digital pen and you can draw and you can select different types of pen, marker, like paintbrush, different colors. You can erase. I can add a sticky note if I wanted to add like a more lengthy caption. I can add an image. So maybe I'm just like, oh my God, I'm so bad at drawing. And so maybe you want to find a part of an image that you're going to use in your model. You are welcome to insert an image from the internet. Oh my God. Oh, well, there we go. You could insert shapes here, a text box if you wanted to label everything. And again, even if I don't have a tablet, even if I don't have a fancy digital pen, if I have a mouse and a hand, I can draw and make my model here, okay? And then you could just make sure the shared settings are so that I can view it, just like in a Google Doc. Right, you would want to make sure that it's shared with me so I have access, and then you would just upload this into Canvas, okay? Again, there is no one way that you have to do this. It is whatever is most comfortable for you. I would say most kids are most comfortable hand drawing it, taking a picture and uploading the pictures. But if you want to do something else to upload your model, that is perfectly fine, okay? So I do have a couple private questions in the chat, which I'll answer when I'm done. Does anyone right now know, as they're looking at this page in Canvas, thinking about what I just described and went over, of anything that they want to ask me, even just they want me to repeat it, clarify again, anything like that? Okay, so if you have no other questions then, you have the remainder of class to get started working on this. I would like everyone to remain in here as they're working on it because everyone has this to work on. If and when you have a question, feel free to drop it in the chat. Remember that this class is done at 11:05, so you have about 35 minutes to start it. And your next class starts at 11:10, okay? Okay, so someone asked a good question in the chat, could we use markers? 100%, just make sure that they are colors that I'll be able to easily see. So like one time I had a kid do a model in like neon yellow highlighter. That would be a bad color to choose because I won't be able to see that easily. But yeah, if you're using like your standard colored markers with mostly bold, bright colors, you're going to be fine. And again, as you have questions, make sure you drop it in the chat so I can help you.